Capitalism could not survive in a culture dominated by mysticism and altruism.
The world is changing. The age of the consumer is over.
Stand up for freedom, no matter what the cost. It can help to save your soul and maybe your country.
Do you understand the forces shaping events in the world around you? Do you want to know the answers or just the issues? Do you know the secrets of prosperity economics? Live from Salt Lake City and at freecapitalist.com across the nation, you're listening to the free capitalist himself, Rick Kerber.
I hope you all like that. I had to do that just because it's time to wake up and turn your brain on, and the best way I could tell everybody to do that is give you a little free capitalist vibe going on. So I want to welcome everybody. I was waiting for Andrea Parker to get done just so that we could get her update, because I thought Andrea was doing a really good job giving you a blow-by-blow. I know a lot of you were probably watching her and listening to her. She took great notes in court today, and one of the things I want to do is give you an update from a legal perspective, and I think it was good to let Andrea go through everything. So kudos to Andrea. Good job. Thank goodness for people like Andrea willing to be diligent, get the word out, and keep updating, that kind of thing. Hope you're all excited. Got a couple things on the agenda. Got some feedback from the last 2 days. This is day number 3 in our revitalized free capitalist mobile command center here in Las Vegas. We're down here for the United States of America versus Bundy pretrial preparation. Trial is scheduled to start here in just a couple days. Matter of fact, we're scheduled to start 1 week from today. So a lot of pretrial work going on, today, and a lot of things going on behind the scenes. Got some exciting things to talk to you about. Those of you who are interested in the legal community and the legal world and legal developments, give you some updates there on what's going on with that case. And I want to give you some updates on the liberty movement, the cause of liberty, the cause of freedom, and some of the things we were talking about the last 2 days. But like I said, I got some feedback. And first of all, my wife tells me we got to keep this within an hour. So hi, Debbie. Hi, Lissa. So we're going to try and see if I can keep this within an hour. So the first broadcast we did, we were like an hour and 10 minutes. Last night was like an hour and 20 minutes. And matter of fact, what I was thinking about doing is breaking this up into 2 different pieces. The first piece, I want to talk about something that we didn't have time to talk about last night, that I call the 7 fundamentals of liberty and free society. You'll see why I want to talk about that here in a second. And then I want to give you a legal update on United States of America versus Bundy et al. And what I was thinking about doing is breaking the broadcast up into kind of those 2 distinct pieces. So those of you who later want to share this with others, you can bookmark certain places or whatnot. But one way or the other, my goal here is to keep this within about 50 to 60 minutes or less. And at the end, I want to take questions. So if you've got questions, if you've got comments, please jot them down and then chime in at the end. It makes it a lot easier, so we don't have to interrupt and get sidetracked and distracted and this kind of thing as we go along. One of the things, I know a lot of you are still getting to know me. A lot of you are still wondering, hey, who's this bearded fellow who's talking about the Bundy case and this kind of thing. We've done some history. You can go to freecapitalist.com and give you, hey, David, and hi, Gina and Ellen. You can go to freecapitalist.com and read the history of the Free Capitalist Project, a little bit about who I am. You can read the most recent legal developments. I just got done with a trial. We've been fighting the federal government for a long time, but we've also been in the liberty movement for a long time. And so I'm not gonna go into that long history, except for to say, we are not Johnny-come-lately here to the liberty movement. We've been, like some of you, dedicating our lives to standing up for freedom, no matter what the cost, for many years. My wife is Jewel, so if you want to say hi to Jewel, I appreciate Kelly always giving her compliments and this kind of thing. The Free Capitalist Project and I would not be anything without Jewel and her support. And if those of you don't get offended, when I posted the picture of Jewel to advertise this broadcast, I'm just missing her. I'm down here in Las Vegas. She's up in Liberty Reef. Hey, Jim, good to see you. Hi, Tara Lee. And I just thought it was great. You all could see my beautiful partner in Liberty here. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional because I miss my family. But in the cause of liberty, it is always better if you're united with the person who's closest to you, because this is a war. It is a battle. It's very real. And until it affects your life, you don't know how real it is until you find yourself in the battle. Hey Connie, hey John, and Kelly was making some positive comments on there, and then we had Randy Pons, an old friend who made a remark, and somebody messaged me and said, hey, is he insulting Jewel? Because he called her the stewardess. If you want to know why Jewel is the stewardess of global liberty, you just have to hang out with us for a little while, and you have to understand that's a little inside baseball. So there's a philosopher, a religious leader and philosopher from almost 100 years ago, who said something that I have clung on to for years as kind of a private motto or slogan of mine, particularly related to things that are very important, like the liberty movement. And his name is John Widtsoe, and John Widtsoe talks about the opinions of other people. And I was in a conversation today in the courthouse with some nice ladies, and we're talking about kind of in the freedom movement, how we have different factions and these kind of things. And I made the remark, I said, once the government comes after you, once you've had to stare down the United States federal government or even the state government, once you've been in that battle, you realize that our enemy is not, hey, Richard, welcome from New York. Hey, Jonathan. Once you realize that our enemy isn't making distinctions, they just roll forward, you realize that we're united whether we admit it or not. We can make the most of it or not. I used to have billboards up and down the interstate in the Rocky Mountain West with the slogans from Free Capitalist Radio, and one of the slogans was, some things are true whether you believe it or not. And my friends, if you love liberty, we're in this together, because no matter what you want to define your group as, or your viewpoint as, or your faith background as, liberty is the universal constant for those who stand against oppression, tyranny, unfairness, wickedness. God's law is the law of liberty. And so the sooner we can see that, the more forgiving we become of each other's shortcomings and little nuanced approaches to this or that, and we draw each other in this army of people who love liberty. So, but there are always people who express their opinions, and everybody's got them, and that's good. But not everybody's opinion is worth the same, because not everybody works hard to understand their own ideas. And in this freedom movement, before I get into the updates on the USA v. Bundy, which, by the way, some rather earth-shaking developments today for those of you who have eyes to see. So stay tuned for that. But I want to cover this first, because if you don't know what we're fighting for, the update on what happens in the courtroom really matters a lot less, right? Because if you don't know kind of the broader picture, you can't see some things. Matter of fact, I see some people, hi Debbie, some people, they think that we're just in this to get these guys out of prison. Well, that's true to a degree, but they could have got out of prison a lot earlier. They could be out of prison now if they were willing to make certain choices. They could have avoided this whole thing if they'd have made certain choices. When you stand up for liberty, you stand against a trend, and the trend is of big talk and small thinking. There is no shortage of big talk and small thinking in the liberty movement. And we got to rectify that and do some bigger thinking and some more detailed and more passionate thinking, because not all thinking is of equal value. And let me just get to the quote here. Now, this quote has to do with religious thinking, but I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, because I think it applies equally to God's law of liberty. Johnny Widtsoe, who's a scientist and religious leader and philosopher, he said this. He said, "It's a paradox Now, I'm paraphrasing. I don't have anything I'm reading in front of me or anything. I'm just remembering it. He says it's a paradox. And think about if this is you or people you know. You know, your sister, your brother, your neighbor, your Facebook stalker friends. He says it is a paradox that men will gladly devote several years of their life to the study of a particular art or science at the university. But when it comes to studying things, and he says like the gospel of Jesus Christ, but what I'm going to say is like God's law of liberty. When it comes to studying something that encompasses all arts and all sciences and affects all aspects of life, people think they're an expert if they occasionally read an essay or, in modern day vernacular, share a couple Facebook posts and express a few opinions. He says it's a paradox that men will study for 2 to 4 years to get a degree. They'll borrow money. They'll borrow $20,000, $40,000, $80,000, $100,000, to become a lawyer or a doctor or a mechanic or a veterinarian. They'll move their family across the country. They'll reorient their lives every day. Some of you know what I'm talking about because some of you have done this. And it's a paradox that we'll do that because we want to go get a job. And then even then, when you get your college degree and you enter the workforce, you enter oftentimes at the lower rung. Like, for example, you go to law school and you come out of law school, first-year law student, you're a peon because you got a lot to learn. Yet in the liberty movement, there are people who think that because they read Frederick Bastier's The Law, or because it finally dawned on them they should read the Constitution, or because they read an essay by Walter Williams, or because they heard a sermon in church that for the first time they opened their eyes, and when they read the scriptures they go, oh my gosh, God's on our side. He loves liberty. And I don't mean to be facetious. I mean to say we all have moments where we wake up, and there are many moments where we wake up again and again, and we paradigm shift. But it's a paradox that we acknowledge that to become even a beginner in a profession, we have to study and work and prepare and strive for years. Yet in the liberty movement, we sometimes are slow to distinguish between those whose ideas are refined through time and experience and education, and those who simply happen to talk a lot, or have a particular viewpoint, or wear a particular lapel pin. Anyway, it goes on to say, he said, those who pass judgment on important subjects without devoting themselves to a lifetime of study, their opinion on these matters is worthless. Think about that. Who are you listening to? Who are you feeding your mind to? At the beginning of every episode of Free Capitalist Radio years ago, I started a phrase. I said it here today. I would start my radio show every morning. I would say, wake up. Turn your brain on. Well, one of the reasons I would say that is because it was early in the morning. My radio show started really early. And there was this numbskull who did the show before me. And he was like a socialist, progressive, flaming, insane shock jock. And I would listen, to the radio, getting kind of in the mood, getting ready to do my radio program. I'd be driving in to the radio studio to get ready to do my radio show, and I would get so upset at this guy. It really motivated me to do my show. And I thought, holy cow, the people that have tuned in to the radio, back then it was AM 630 in Salt Lake City, and then after I got syndicated, it was on the ARN Christian Radio Network across 23 states, and then it was on iTunes Radio across the whole world. And I said, these people that are already listening, they've been fed all this nonsense for about 3 hours before I get on. I'm like, okay, y'all, you got to wake up now. It's time to wake up and turn your brain on. You might have liked that guy, but he knows nothing. His opinion is worthless. He doesn't study. He doesn't have any conviction. He doesn't stand for anything. He talks about everything, but he doesn't stand for anything. Do you know people like this? Who they will talk incessantly about politics or freedom or religion or each other, about people, but they don't stand? See, one of the reasons a guy like Ammon Bundy or Cliven Bundy or any of these other men who took a stand, one of the reasons it inspires us, if you love liberty, Because you can immediately distinguish between those who just blather on and those who say, yeah, this is important enough, I'm going to pay a price. I'm going to pay a price for liberty. Another one of my heroes said, stand up for liberty. Stand up for freedom, no matter what the cost. It can help to save your soul and maybe your country. Be careful. Not all opinions are the same or worth the same. And in the cause of liberty, if you want to be part of the solution, here's my invitation to you. Are you willing to study the doctrines of liberty as if you were going to get a degree in liberty? And I don't mean an associate's degree or a 4-year degree from a cheap state college. I'm laughing at my friends who... I mean a doctorate degree from Harvard, right? Whatever, the equivalent. Are you willing to do you love liberty so much that you would move your family across the country for 4 years or for 7 years? That you would devote, you get up every day, you'd have a new wardrobe, you would spend money, you'd borrow money, you'd take different jobs, you would arrange your lives so that you could learn liberty. Now, I don't think you have to do all those things. But you have to be willing to do those things. You have to have a fire inside of you that says, I want to know. I don't want to just feel. I want to know. And if you do that, we're friends. I don't care what church you go to on Sunday. I do. And I love and respect all my friends who are committed to their faith. I don't care where you work. If you love liberty that much, we're friends. Now, Brandon, I know, I just said there's not enough hours in the day. Remember, we talked about scarcity yesterday. If you didn't watch a broadcast from yesterday, after this is over, go back and watch a broadcast from yesterday. There is enough. There's always enough time. We have enough time to win the fight for liberty. I promise you, my friends, we do. There is so much power in a small group of united people. We have time, we have resources, we have the passion, we have the ability, but we have to be informed, we have to be educated, and we have to get organized. And man, in the freedom movement, this has been a 90-year struggle to get people to admit that they have to be informed with real information. They have to be educated in the science, if you will, of liberty, and then they have to get organized, right? We just can't be a bunch of bumbling, drunk liberty lovers, going out, freedom, I mean, that's good. That's a good start. I don't mean to, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your brother, right? It's serious business, right? We all know it's serious business. Serious business. There was a rumor going around that Ammon was going to be presented with a plea agreement, just like some of these men who have recently been presented with plea agreements. And the government has brought in a new prosecutor who's an LDS fellow, so he can get into the psychology of these pesky Mormon guys, these Bundys. He's going to offer him pleas, And I'm not at liberty to go into great detail about all this, but I will tell you this. Ammon's comment in response when he heard about this was, what are we doing this for? Why have I been sitting here in prison for a year and a half away from my family if I'm just going to say, oh, sorry, whoops, yeah, whoops, I know I pissed you off, oh, sorry, he wouldn't say that, I know I made you angry, I'm sorry, please, here, slap me. It's a war, my friends. It's a war. Sorry, I got to move angles here because my battery's dying, so I got to plug us in. I was trying to avoid the shadows from yesterday, but let me give me just a second. So what's the point? What's the point? Why am I getting all fired up about all that? What's the point? I want to share something with you that most of you never have heard. It's a result of years and years of study and learning. Mentors like my dear late friend, Dr. W. Cleon Skousen, like Dr. Kimber. Hold on, I gotta fix this. I apologize. I gotta get my act together here. I didn't realize my battery was gonna die. Give me just a second. Alright. Let's see if this doesn't work. I got something for you. I got some little nuggets for you. If I can get the dang camera to sit in the right place here. Alright. So, is that alright, guys? Is that alright? Somebody give me a thumbs up if that's alright. I know there's a little shadow, but we alright? Let's see. Sorry, it's the only place I got a good plug. Let me share something with you. Just some food for thought. How many of you ever heard this concept? And I'm going to get to a Bundy update here in just a minute. How many of you ever heard this concept? How many ever heard somebody say the family is the fundamental unit of society? I can't tell you how many people I've heard in my life say the family is the fundamental unit of society. But let's think this through for a minute. If the family is the fundamental unit of society, how many of you also heard that the family is under attack? And we got to stand up for family. What does that have to do with liberty and the liberty movement? You see, free society begins with self-government. Right? The Declaration of Independence. We declare these truths to be self-evident. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You remember this, right? Individuals. So we start with individuals. Individuals by themselves is the beginning of self-government. But government, as we think of government in our institutions, is an outgrowth of ourselves, our ideas. First, we have self-discipline. Then in our households, we have to govern our homes, right? It's obvious. Then these homes form communities. These households form communities, right? So self-government begins with each of us individually. But if it stops there, we're all targets for the tyrants, the aristocrats, the monarchs, the fascists, Antifa, right? You got to understand, free society, the fundamental unit of free society is a family. Yet we're all out here fighting for freedom as if we're a bunch of, single warriors. It doesn't work. The enemy's kicking our trash in so many ways. Why? Let me share something with you. This is not why people normally tune into a Facebook live stream, because it takes a long time. This is like a 5-hour lecture and a 13-week course. I'm going to give you the 5-minute, 7-minute Cliff Notes version just to spark some ideas, because then when I give you the updates of what's happening in USA v. Bundy, you're going to see some things that nobody will tell you. You're going to see things and go, holy crap, that's what's happening in court. Yeah, matter of fact, I heard somebody say, they were sitting in court today, they said, why are you asking those questions? Why is this attorney asking that? Well, there's a reason. Same reason why the news media didn't understand we were going to win up in Oregon. Because they weren't paying attention to why we were doing what we were doing. They didn't have eyes to see. And I invite y'all to consider a concept here that I call the 7 fundamentals. 7 fundamentals of family and free society. You see, natural law is a funny thing. God's law is a funny thing. The number 7 is an interesting thing. How many colors in the rainbow are there? How many standard notes on an octave are there? How many days of the week are there? Just think about it. Think it through. Go research how Newton came up with Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Go research why our calendar has 7 days. Go research that. I'm gonna teach you something that I want you to think about for a second. Just want you to think. First day of the week, Sunday. We all act like it's Monday, but it's Sunday. Self-government-wise, Sunday is a day of devotion. Sunday is why we go to church on Sunday. Historically, I know we are collectively blind to these traditions because we live in a world where we've been trained and educated not to think. But Sunday, the reason we all go to church on Sunday is not an accident. Not all of us. Some of us go on Saturday, I know. But the reason most of us go to church on Sunday, and even if you don't go to church, it's fine, but there's a day, the first day you begin by devoting yourself to the ideas and the principles and the laws that govern free society. That's the point. Again, I don't have time to go into this. I could quote John Locke for you. I could go into the letters between Jefferson and Adams from 1819 to 1823. We don't even, nobody, but Sunday's the first day. Sunday, self-government. Sunday, we devote ourselves to ideas, faith. And the family's fundamental unit of society, right? Family's fundamental unit of society. Hey, what do you mean? Well, Rick, if Rick is devoted on the first day of the week to his ideas, to his faith, to the principles and laws that he uses to govern himself, if he begins each week devoted to that, okay, then his home and his household will govern themselves on Sunday similarly, and will devote their home and their household on that day to the study and the devotion and the sanctity of these ideas, including God's law of liberty. The outgrowth of that is that concept of government is enshrined in the home. That concept of government is enshrined in the home, and the churches of America grow out of the home. But if the homes aren't governing themselves, and instead they just tune out, watch football. I like football, by the way. Denver Broncos suck this year. What the heck? They're my team. Been my team since 1977. You should feel bad for me, really. This is a horrible year for them. But look, if you think about this, those of you who are religious, if you're not religious, just pause and think about it for a second, because it applies to you too, but this is just an easy example. If you're not governing yourself and your home and your household, and out of your household the strength of church doesn't flow, then when you unite with your neighbors, you're not building up a church, you're going to church and you're taking away. Hey, Brandon. Hey, Valerie. Cowboys, you know what happened in 1977, Valerie? We're going to have a talk. But think about this for a minute. If you're not governing yourself and your home isn't devoted on that day, you're not bringing anything to church. You're just going to church, say, is there anything in here for me? And I don't care what your faith, what religion. You're going to meet with a group of people who say they're devoted to God, and all you're doing is saying, is that sermon good? Did that person look at me right? Did the pastor give me anything? And people will leave church. They have midlife crisis. They're like, it's not good for me. It's not working for me. But you see, government, the concept of governing, begins with self, and then in the home. The family is the fundamental unit of society. The strength of our churches is directly related to the strength of our homes. That's why the churches generally are there, is to help strengthen the homes. The homes are there to build up the churches so we can unite as a community and govern ourselves, okay, in our devotion. Now, if we don't do that, then the institution of church crumbles, because the family is the foundation upon which that church is built. Any church that's not built upon the strength of its congregation, its households and families, not the individual members, the households, will lose power and it will fail. Okay? Now, if you're not a religious person, but you know that principles govern, it's not the church, but it's the principles that you're devoted to, and you better be devoted to them as an individual and in your household, and then you work with, you network with, you build relationships with like-minded people, and you bring to that group, that association, that social relationship, that common interest, and you become strong. You become a socially strong group of people who can make the world better by creating value, by serving. It's incredible. That's Sunday. That's Sunday. Day number 2, Monday. What's Monday for? You don't even know. Monday's a day devoted to education. as an individual, Monday is the day where you reflect upon your own personal education. Now, I know we live in a world where John Dewey has trained, taught, and educated you that you need to get educated by socializing yourself. And once you were appropriately socialized at age 18, you went out as a mature adult and you started to procreate, and then you started to take from the government, the 3% elite that, you know, are smarter than all of us to govern. But take all that off for a minute. It's not the law. It's not free society. Free society is not an outgrowth of government indoctrination centers, government schools. Monday is a day to reflect upon your own stewardship over your own education. Going back to that quote from John Witt, so if you're not devoted to the study of liberty and the study of the ideas on Monday, you reflect and you say, where do I correct my course? Looking back on the last week, what have I done to further my own education? You take that as an individual, then as your home and your household, you do the same thing. As parents, you look at your children and you evaluate at least once a week, how are my children doing on their education? You look at your husband or your wife, your loved one, the adults in your household, and you say, how are we doing? Are we committed? Are we students? Are we continuing to learn because we love the principles of liberty? Are we continuing to become better people because we want to be educated, we want to be smart? Once a week, Monday, we have the opportunity to evaluate that. And if we do that in an individual level, then our homes become stronger. And if as our homes we govern ourselves, then as the fundamental unit of society, out of those homes that are doing that grows school. That's where the phrase homeschool comes from, by the way. We live in a society where we've got all these debates, and I don't have time for that one today, where do you homeschool? Do you private school? Do you religious school? We should all homeschool. Whether your kids go to a government school or not, whether your kids go to a church school or a private school, whether you don't have any schools. If you don't have it in your home, you can't bring it to society. If you want strong principle-based liberty schools as social institutions, they're built on families. See, that's what it means. When it says family is the fundamental unit of society, it means all other social institutions are built upon family. And if the families crumble, you want to change the world, you can't change the world until you have a group of strong families. Okay, that's Monday. Now, I don't have time to go through all this in great detail, but let me just give them to you. Tuesday. You know what Tuesday is? Tuesday is civics. But if you were born after about 1968, you have no idea what civics even means. Civics is what does it mean to be a citizen. If you're born after 1968, you don't even know what that would look like as a subject. Okay, Tuesdays for civics. That's why we vote on Tuesdays. You ever wonder why we vote on Tuesdays? Tuesday is the day you reflect on the proper role of government as an individual. Am I being a tyrant in my life? Am I exercising unrighteous dominion over the people I love, over the people I work with? Am I lying? Am I stealing? Am I cheating? Am I being productive? Am I governing myself well? Is my home governing? What are the laws? What are the rules of my home? How are my children doing? How are the adults in my home doing with the rules? What are the rules? Do I have a constitution for my own home? Do I govern myself in my home? Does our home have a way to deal with discipline based on principles, or is it just emotion? Do we just get ticked off when our kids do something and say, whack, stop it? And then you wonder why all the government does is come up to people like Bundy and go, whack, stop it. I'll tell you, because the person who had the gun, who put Bundy in prison, probably grew up in a home where they didn't know a dang thing about what we're talking about, so they have no idea what good government is. They're just the yes massa sort of good government people. Sorry, I don't mean to be offensive, but we have a whole dark part of our history that we call slavery, but we don't understand that slavery was a physical reality that was based on a mental deformity of how human beings treat each other. It's happening today. The reason these men have been in prison all this time is because people like Judge Navarro, God bless her, she didn't grow up in a home where on Tuesdays they were making sure that individually they were strong civically and knew what it meant to be a free citizen. Do you know what the trivium is from ancient Rome and the education model of the quadrivium? No, you don't know. And you don't have to know that. I'm not trying to outsmart you or anything. But what I'm trying to say is a liberal education classically meant, what does a man or a woman need to know by the time they're an adult to be able to be a free citizen? By the way, you were entitled to wear hats if you were a free citizen. That's why until about 1950, all adults, men and women, wore hats, because it was a symbol. Anyway, different story. Civics, my friends. Tuesday is civics, good government. Are you governing yourself well, or are you being a tyrant? Is your home a place of tyranny or a place of principle? Are you teaching your children, are you teaching each other so that when you go into the community, you know what good government looks like? Okay? Self-government, family government, community government. The reason our government is socialistic and paternalistic is because our homes are socialistic and paternalistic. And the reason our homes are socialistic and paternalistic is because we individually crave something for nothing. We're victims. We're trained, taught, and educated to be victims. It's not my fault. Somebody come help me. Somebody give to me. That's not the formula for liberty and free society. Again, don't have too much time for all this. Wednesday, what's Wednesday? Wednesday is health and wellness, same thing. How am I doing? Look at my life. Am I eating well? Am I exercising? Am I doing these things? Look at my household. Do we have a strategy for being strong, healthy, and wise? Benjamin Franklin. Thursday, economics. How are my economics? You don't even know that's what Thursday is for. Friday, art and culture. Saturday, recreation. There's a purpose for every day, and there's a principle for every day. And if individually, that's why we have 7 days. That's why there's 7 colors. That's why there's 7 musical notes. Some of you are going, what the crap is he talking about? Well, I'm just trying to plant a seed so you think about something, okay? Because I'm going to transition, and we're going to give you an update. These are 7 fundamental ideas. If you become strong in these 7 fundamental areas, and you work on building your household and your family along this pattern, you have started to be productive in the liberty movement. If you haven't, you're just making a lot of noise. Yes, Saturday was cereal and cartoons for me too. Recreation means the recreation of the soul and body and mind. Play, sports, competition, healthy competition. It's the principal way of free society. We used to know all these things. Our ancestors knew these things. We've grown up in a society where we've been trained, taught, and educated that it doesn't matter. We just delegate all this. So what happens? When those 7 things, so Sunday, remember that's your faith, and outgrowth of faith is church. Monday is education, outgrowth of education are schools. Tuesday is our governments, our courts, our legislative halls, right? Our executives, our city councils, our governors, right? Wednesday is our doctors' offices, our hospitals, our fitness clinics, our health and wellness institutions. Thursday is our businesses. Friday is our theaters and our community centers. Saturday is our sporting events, our recreation. How are those things in society? How are those institutions doing in society? Do you like modern entertainment? Do you like modern government? Do you like modern schools? We can all bitch about them. And we can all say they ought to be different. And they ought to be better. And we can make them better. And you would be surprised at how quickly a small group of people who are dedicated to the cause of liberty can change their communities. There are documented examples, and we'll do that one of these days. There are documented examples of people in 3, 5, 7, 10 years radically reforming their whole community based on these ideas. I wanted to share that with you because every day people ask me questions about why I'm involved, what I'm doing, why are we doing what we're doing for the Bundys. Well, you see, these men stood for liberty. A lot of people don't understand that. They took a stand because tyranny had encroached upon their lifestyle so much, their life so much, that they said enough. That's why Lavoy Finnecum's dead up in Oregon. And if you want that to mean something, your opinion, your education has to be more than emotion. You have to know what it was they were standing for. So we can work together and we can build on that foundation and those 7 fundamentals. So that's my brain on thought for you today. Now, let me transition here and let's give you an update on what happened in the United States of America versus Bundy today. Now, I'm not going to give you the blow-by-blow that Andrea gave you because you can just go watch her Facebook feed and get kind of the blow-by-blow details. But let me just give you kind of a legal perspective on what's going on. Almost a year ago, Ammon Bundy's legal team wrote a motion. A motion is what you do in court when you want the court to grant you some kind of relief in a legal proceeding. And we pointed out that we had discovered and the Bundy family had discovered. Bags and bags and bags of shredded documents from the government and their command post during the Bundy Ranch incident. And it appeared that the government had intentionally shredded and destroyed critical evidence, potentially exculpatory evidence. What that means is, exculpatory means it could help prove your innocence. And it appeared to us that there was a real risk that what they did is they destroyed all their notes, and they destroyed all evidence of what they knew and what they had encountered when they talked to Cliven Bundy and Ammon Bundy and Davy Bundy and Ryan Bundy and Pete Santilli and Ryan Payne and all this stuff. And when they realized they were going to lose, when they realized that the Washington, D.C. told them to get out of Dodge and back off, and political pressure was being brought by the governor of Nevada, the local sheriff, the BLM in Washington, D.C., and when Dan Love and his team were told to get out of Dodge, there was a reasonable suspicion, we had a good faith belief, that based on this shredded information, it looks like they had tactically decided to destroy all of their operation notes and all of their information. And then, when we were looking at the memorandums, the interviews, and the reports that they actually produced as discovery in this case, now this was over a year ago, we noticed that a lot of their reports were all dated the same. And it was a couple days after they had stood down and left. And we also noticed that in these reports there was evidence, and I can't get into what the evidence was because that's still legal strategy. But there was evidence that these reports weren't being written by the individuals involved that had signed the reports, that they were copied and pasted with some kind of command control structure, basically fabricating new evidence now that they knew that there was going to be a criminal case, or they believed there was going to be a criminal case. Well, a year ago we couldn't prove it. We had suspicions, we had secondary evidence, and the court didn't grant us any relief. But over the last year, several of the attorneys, several of the defense teams, including incredible work by the Federal Defender's Office, has continued to work and research, and there's been new information that has come out about the chief, what they call the special agent in charge, a gentleman named Dan Love, who has been very publicly criticized in other areas in how he carried out his duties and his conduct. And there's been several official federal government investigations into his conduct. And in these reports, there is evidence that has given us new support to renew this argument. We've got some new evidence to prove, for example, that this was kind of his pattern, this is his modus operandi, to tell people to destroy evidence and to tell people to hide the truth. And so this motion was renewed recently, and today was an evidentiary hearing. And in the legal world, evidentiary hearings are much more rare than just a normal hearing or status conference. An evidentiary hearing is almost like a mini trial. And this court, in this case, in a year and a half, I'm trying to think, but with the exception of the pretrial detention hearings, I don't think there have been any evidentiary hearings. And evidentiary hearings are good for lots of reasons. Evidentiary hearings are when you get to call witnesses before the trial and put them on the witness stand and put them under oath and ask them questions. And for the first time, we were able to get this Dan Love person on the stand. Matter of fact, in the previous two trials, they weren't even able to get him in as a witness. And so strategically, when you can get a government agent, particularly a key government agent on the witness stand, is sworn to tell the truth, there are two things you're trying to do. Number one, you're trying to get relief of some sort from the court. You're trying to get the court to do something as a result of the evidence that you can produce, thus evidentiary hearing. The second thing you're trying to do is, in civil cases, you take depositions of people. And that way, if they go to trial and they lie, you've got their prior statements, and you can say, hey, you're saying this today, but you said this before, and you can discredit people who lie. But see, in a criminal procedure, it's very hard to do with government witnesses because you don't have any way to get their statements officially under oath. But in evidentiary hearing, now we've got Dan Love all day long under oath. Okay? Well, Ben, I'm going to challenge you for a second. I'm going to stop here. Ben, that's a good case. The courts are bought and paid for. You know what they're mostly bought and paid for by? They're bought and paid for because we don't stand up in courts as a people. We run away. Historically, over the last 80 years, we have increasingly said it's not worth fighting. And the more good people fail to stand up in courts, the more those courts can be bought and paid for by other interests. So when these men who are stand, it's really important to support them, not just with money and donations, although they need that. It's important to support them so that others who come after them will have the courage to stand as well. Because so few people have the temerity to stand. That's how we take back liberty. The courts are where one man stands with one judge and has his rights adjudicated. There is no more significant battlefield in the cause of liberty in our day than the courtrooms of America. And yet most of us know nothing significant about legal processes and how to even stand. So today, all of the defense attorneys and all the defendants, including Ryan Bundy, proceeding pro se, got to question Dan Love. And it went real well. We got a lot of valuable things on the record. Now, let me just talk about a couple other things. In the legal world, everybody always says to me, well, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Oh, yeah, you're often right about that. The question is, what do you want the court to do about it? In other words, just because you can point out that the government did something wrong, you still have to have a legal argument that says, okay, the government did this wrong, and therefore we are entitled to this specific relief. We're entitled, Judge, to you doing this thing. And that's really hard for most people to articulate. Even most lawyers, they can point out and say, hey, the government made a mistake here. Okay, and the judge can say, essentially, well, what do you want me to do about it? And the answer isn't make the case go away. Our society would be lawless if you did that. If the government had to execute perfectly, obviously they would never execute. On the other hand, we can't excuse the government violating rights and violating principles and being dishonest and overreaching and these kind of things. So we're asking for certain relief. Stay tuned what we get. I got to be careful. There's certain things that aren't appropriate to share right now. But one of the things that was real important that some people didn't understand today, I'll tell you this. I said there were some earth-shaking developments. Let me see if those of you who have eyes to see can see this. In order to get the relief we've been seeking, the law requires that we prove by evidence, either by a preponderance of the evidence standard or by clear and convincing proof, that there was evidence that could have been exculpatory, or that was exculpatory, and that it was intentionally destroyed under the direction of the government. Hey, brother. Hey, Kimball. We have to prove that there was or likely was exculpatory evidence or potentially exculpatory evidence. We have to prove it was destroyed, hidden, withheld, concealed, etc. We don't have it now. On purpose, by a government agent who knew that prosecution was happening or likely to happen or imminent. So a lot of the questions that were being asked, people didn't understand. Why keep asking all these questions? Well, we got to prove those things. There was a lot of evidence today that came in that, in my opinion, gives us legitimate grounds to argue those things were proved by at least a preponderance of the evidence. And we still have more witnesses to go. So I can't go much further than that, but that is huge. Go spend a little bit of time researching. You can Google or whatever. What is the remedy when the government intentionally withholds or hides exculpatory or potentially exculpatory evidence? And then you'll see where we're going. You see where we're trying to go. It's crazy. It's so hard to prove. In 100 cases where you try to prove that, you can't prove it today. It was incredible. Andrea said in her broadcast that she noticed that the judge was acting differently. The judge was actually overruling the government's objections during the lines of questioning. Well, why? And I know a lot of people, it's very easy to criticize judges. Yeah, Michael, it's not always dismissal of all charges. That is one remedy. It's not always the best remedy, because then they can just refile charges. I know something about that. The government prosecuted me 5 times after I got 4 different indictments dismissed. So dismissing charges isn't always all that you think it might be cracked up to be. But Andrea said she noticed that, yes, and how can you get acquittals, Tara Lee? What can you get? What kind of remedy could you get from the court to help make an acquittal more likely? Dismissals with prejudice are very, very hard. Legal standards very high. Anyway, yeah, David, attack. Hit hard, good things happen. Yeah, dismissals with prejudice. Yeah, I had my case dismissed with prejudice, Gina, in 2014. They re-indicted me in 2017. So I agree, that's what you want, but it's hard to get, and it doesn't always stick. There are other remedies that people don't even know you can go get that help make victory more likely. Remember, the reason I'm involved in this case, the reason Morgan Philpott's involved in this case, the reason Marcus Mumford and I and Morgan were involved in the Oregon case is there's fighting, and then there's fighting smart. And I'm not saying we're the smartest people in the world, and I'm not saying we can't be beaten. We can. But we do pretty well. And things aren't always what they appear. So be careful. Be patient. We are confident on the course we are on, and hopeful and faithful in providence. So anyway, let me just say this. The reason Judge Navarro, in my opinion, was acting differently today is she saw what was happening, and therefore she was more patient, and she saw the legal standard. Dan Hill, by the way, did a great job today. All the attorneys did good, and Ryan Bundy, actually, in my opinion, did tremendous in his questioning of. You have no idea how hard it is to be coherent and articulate in a court of law, especially when you haven't been formally trained, especially when you've been sitting in a prison for all this time and you don't have access to the kind of materials and legal resources. I didn't particularly like his mustache, but other than that, I give Ryan Bundy an A+ today. A+. Coherent, intelligent, effective, very good. We should be thanking the God of heaven for inspiring and protecting men who are willing to be inspired and are willing to speak and speak truth to power. It's a big deal. But all the attorneys got a chance. All the attorneys did pretty good. But Dan Hill did particularly good because he laid out the framework of this argument. And so, yeah, his mustache, crazy. So, rather, I've never seen these factors come together so well with just one witness. There'll be more witnesses tomorrow. So with all that said, that's from a legal update what's happening. We're looking for some remedies. Stay tuned. I can't tell you everything because I assume there's somebody from the United States watching, and I guess they can probably guess what we're trying to do, but I'm not going to help them out any more than I already have. But I wanted you guys to know this isn't just a dog and pony show. Evidentiary hearing's a big deal, and today went really well legally. Now, I'll also tell you some other things. It was really interesting. I was wondering whether Dan Love was just going to plead the fifth because he's under his own investigation, and he didn't. It was kind of a Jack Nicholson moment. You know, damn right, I ordered the code red. You know, he said flatly that he wanted all of the information, anything in all of the government's operations. He wanted it gathered up and removed. He tried to make a distinction between being removed and destroyed. But anyway, for those of you who have eyes to see, here's what I want to say. Civics. Okay? Tuesday. Civics is about what does it mean to be a free man? Or what does it mean to be a free woman? What do you have to know to be a free man or free woman? Suffice to say, most men and women don't know, and that's why most men and women are not free in reality. I was impressed with Ryan Bundy today, because although I do have some disagreements with some of the things that he does once in a while, I do not disagree with him in general. I agree with him wholeheartedly. I support him wholeheartedly because he is a free man who's standing up. And I'm not getting into philosophy here. I'm just talking about a liberally educated person who says, I know there's a judge there who has the power to do horrible things, but I'm a man, and I'm going to stand, and I'm going to be respectful and intelligent and effective. That's free society, my friends. Ryan Bundy, standing in prison scrubs today, was more of a free man than most of the people who were watching Sunday football yesterday. Think that one through. Anyway, I love those who love liberty. I love our friends who are standing. And therefore, I'm down here in the Free Capitalist Mobile Command Center doing what I can to help. So, with that said, my friends, let's do this. Looking at the time, it is 10:03, so we are about an hour in. I will take a few minutes here, and I will answer any questions that you want to throw my way, or do my best to answer questions. So I'll stay on a few minutes. Now, this isn't the bunker, Randy. This is the Mobile Operation Command Center. Can you see that? This is my setup a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, this screen's off. You can't tell. My other iPad, I had to take it over here, but normally I'm a working unit here. Valerie, I understand what you're saying. There's so much more to that. I'm not going to get into legal strategy, respectfully, here on this. Just can't do it. Thanks, Nancy. I'm glad you're enjoying it. We all have free will, John. What we do with that will determines whether we grow in liberty or shrink in liberty. Bailey, how many witnesses tomorrow? It depends. It depends on what the court indulges. We're kind of out of time because there's other hearings. There's a hearing scheduled tomorrow on a motion to dismiss the case. There's a discussion tomorrow about a request to continue the trial because of the shooting still, and potentially. No, he did not plead the fifth. He did not. He said, I ordered the code red. I told him to destroy all those documents. Well, I mean, essentially, that's what he said. All this together, your case, the Hammonds, Bundy, it's all too... I know, Michael, there's a war going on. It's all the same war. Thank you. Terry, that's right. One fundamental question we all have to decide. Will we be free? Will we govern ourselves? Will we govern ourselves? That's the question. When you look in the mirror, look yourself in the eye and ask yourself, are you willing to govern yourself and be responsible for yourself? That means no victim. You're not a victim. People can do bad things to you. People can try to victimize you, and they might. But are you willing to stand free and independent anyway? What do I think the chances of jury selection? Okay, so going back tomorrow, we already have a hearing. I was answering Bailey's question. Thanks. We already have a hearing. We're going to have a hearing on a motion. We're going to have a hearing on a continuance and the state of a jury and preparation for voir dire. I don't know. I don't know where we're at. It kind of depends on how the rest of this evidentiary hearing goes, because there may be more work to do as a result of this evidentiary hearing. So I think there will be at least 2 more witnesses tomorrow, and then we'll see how it goes from there. And then in answer to your question about the continuance, I don't know. I don't know what the chances are. We'll find out. We'll give you an update tomorrow, and I'll give you some more insight on what we accomplished in this evidentiary hearing. So, will we be free? Yes. That is the question. Todd Engel lost his right to self-representation for bringing up Dan Love's name. That's not why he lost his right to self-representation, but there was some frustration there because strategically it was very hard to bring up Dan Love because the elements of the charges against Todd were more removed from this situation. Todd and his lawyer, well, sorry, I'm not going to speak for others. The jury was not there today. No, it was just before the judge. I will say something else. Some people asked me what I thought about Scott Drexler and Eric Parker taking plea agreements. You know, it's always hard to comment on that, because unless you're in those men's shoes, you just don't know. And we're all free to make those choices. So my philosophy is we're all in this liberty battle together. Don't judge people who've had to make that decision. Learn from it. Choose what you're going to take away from it. Love them, support them, maybe the best for them. You know, if you were in their shoes, you know, I teach 13 principles of prosperity. Principle 4 is perspective determines action. The way Dr. Skousen used to teach it, and the way Glenn Kimber teaches it, he said, if you believe what they believe, you might behave the way they behave. So don't presume you know everything that they know. But here's the general thing. It's hard to stand. And sometimes when the government offers you something, it is enticing to get out of the trap that you're in and to get back with your loved ones and your family. So, love them, pray for them, respect them. But I'll tell you there were some discouraging things about that plea agreement, and that is they were forced to say things that were not true in order to accept the deal. So they were free to make the choice to accept the deal, but once they accepted the deal, for example, they were forced to say that nothing had been promised them. That's not true. They wouldn't have made this deal if nothing had been promised to them. They were forced to say that certain evidentiary things happened that did not happen. And so they had to kind of gloss over that. And again, not judging. I've seen it. I've helped people many, many times. But those who do stand and fight, even when deals are on the table, we need to continue to support them, because that's a whole different story now. And I hope Scott Drexler and Eric Parker will continue to support these men who are standing. That's all I got to say about that. You never can trust the government. You never can trust. When they tell you what your plea deal is, it's usually the other shoe doesn't drop until after sentencing. And then you go, wait a minute, they didn't tell me everything. Very, very common, 90% of the time. I hope these men had good legal counsel. That's what I say. Okay, a few more minutes, guys. Sorry, I got a little low volume, a little low on energy. I want you to know, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being part of these reinvigorated Free Capitalist broadcasts. Tell your friends. Invite people to the Free Capitalist group here online. Go back and watch yesterday's broadcast and the day before. Join the Free Capitalist group online. Those of you who had friends, I think we had 300 new members to the Free Capitalist group just between today and yesterday. Awesome. Rock and roll. Let's do another 300 in the next 24 hours. You guys, we can make a tremendous difference. We can do more than be big talkers and small thinkers. We can be smart. We can be incisive. We can be effective. We can make the world a different world for ourselves, for our homes and families, and for our communities, and God willing, for our nation. I believe that. I will end with this. A friend of mine who's passed away, his name was Les McGuire. Some of you know him and have heard me tell his story before. One day we were talking like this, but it was just me and him sitting across a table, and he was having a hard time with me because I have a healthy ego, and so did he, and we both had kind of dominant alpha male sort of personalities. And he had a master's degree, and I did not have a master's degree, and so he thought he was smarter than me. And we were talking one day in his office, and he said, Rick, do you think, you've read a lot, you've read history, you see what's going on in the world, you know a lot of people, you rub shoulders. We by that time, we had together rubbed shoulders with probably half of the senators in the United States, all the major political candidates. Well, I guess maybe not by that point. We were just starting to do all that. But we knew a lot of people, and we knew a lot of what was going on, and assessed the awfulness, if you will, of our situation. And he said, Rick, I got a sincere question for you. He said, do you really believe you can change the world? You know, everybody from the time they're a kid on thinks they can change the world. But do you really want to pay the price to do it. I said, yeah, Les, I think I can really change the world. I really do. He said, do you think you can do it alone? I said, no way. No way. He said, then I'm in it with you. That's my question to each of you. There's 100 people on here right now. There'll be about 5,000 people who watch this over the next 24 hours. Here's my question, my friends. Do you believe we can change the world? And do you believe we can do it alone? I'm grateful to be in this battle with you. Let's get stronger together. I'll meet you back here, same time, same place, tomorrow night. 9 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Mountain time. And if you got thoughts or ideas or things you want me to cover, just send me a message. I wish you all the best. Keep your brain on.